Hospitality sponsors. Um, so I am going to talk about this awesomeness. I titled it FUUX, to get you here. I know the tricks of the trade, right? If I title it provocatively, they will come. So if you want to comment FUUX on Twitter as the hashtag, I checked it. We're safe. I promise. And yeah, this is me. So Jim mentioned a lot of great things that I am working on. I want to say, just to be very clear, I'm not here to sell any Capital One products. I'm not here to promote Capital One. I'm not here to recruit for Capital One. This is just me sharing some thoughts that I have. A lot of people at Capital One do have similar thoughts, but it's just us peer to peer. We'll have a conversation. I don't mind questions. I don't want to talk at you. I'd love to talk with you. And, you know, let's just consider ourselves all peers here. And if you want to raise your hand or just yell out, I'm happy to take the question in the moment rather than at the end. It's totally up to you guys. So I'll do a little bit of self kind of promotion very quickly. I don't want to get into it too much. Jim mentioned I focus a lot on design patterns, design languages, and large frameworks. Earlier in the year, Brad Frost interviewed me for his podcast. If you'd like to hear more about that work and my thoughts on that, you can just look up his website, bradfrost.com, look up his podcast. It's the Style Guide podcast. It's pretty great. I think Nathan Curtis, who was here last month, actually has been interviewed on it as well. It's a great interview. Responsive and adaptive. I led the first kind of big responsive strategy effort for Capital One. So retrofitting CapitalOne.com, making it all responsive and then adaptive since then. Pretty big effort. But I want to tell you that some of the smart decisions we made very early in setting up the framework and the platform, it took 8 of us less than 2 months to make that full site responsive. We spent only 3 weeks writing code, and we spent about 5 weeks testing. Pretty massive effort. Late 2013, I actually had an opportunity to speak about this work at a conference called Artifact, a design conference. One of the kind of greatest things in my career that's happened more recently was when I came back to work Monday morning and Ethan Marcotte had sent me an email. And the gist of the email was, hey, Rob, heard the presentation went amazingly. I'd love to interview about your work and what you're doing. And he started a podcast as well with Karen McGrain. And I think I was the 3rd and 4th episode of that podcast, if you want to look that up as well. With that, a little bit more self-promotion. They have both published books within the last month with a book apart. Karen's is Going Responsive and Ethan's is Patterns and Principles. Both are excerpts from their podcasts. I came with gifts, so first 2 people to raise their hands. All right, I saw you. I'll come back here for you. Yep. And I really didn't catch the second one, but there's one over here. I'll be equal opportunist. I need a guy. There you go. All right. So gifts given, self-promotion out of the way. So this is probably what you were asking yourselves when you read the bio and the description, right? Did this guy really say FUUX? I want to be very clear. What I'm going to talk about tonight is a few thoughts, a couple ideas that I've had over the last year and I've been putting together. It is in no way a middle finger to the user. It's really more of a middle finger to the word user. I find it to be a little limiting. I find it to kind of restrict us into this digital space. And I'm really going to challenge us tonight to kind of push beyond that. So this is all about just getting that word kind of out of what we do and really start focusing on experiences. I'd like to start simply referring to myself as an experienced designer. And I think tonight will be the night that I simply just scream to the world, that is what I will do. I'm no longer a user experience designer. I'm simply an experience designer. There's really nothing simple about that, to be honest. So the challenge for us, stop thinking in terms of users, start thinking in terms of humans. Let's focus on the human experience. You've probably heard that term thrown around often. Let's start thinking in terms of audience. I want to push us to start thinking beyond digital. We don't just focus on mobile apps, native apps, and web experiences. To think broadly about experience and to think beyond a single touch point. I want us to start taking the blinders off and not focus on the one task that we've been given, the one thing we've been asked to design. And think about everything that happens before and after. Our customers, our prospects, our users, whatever your culture calls them, what happens to them before and after they interact with what you're designing? So when I started putting this together, putting these thoughts together, I just wanted to ask myself, what is a UX designer? What's the definition of that? So of course I went to Google. This is what I found. Overall experience of a person using a product such as a website or a computer application, especially in terms of how easy or pleasing it is to use. All right, that sounds about right. But it still is focused on web, computer, application. It's very digital focused, right? Doesn't really say a whole lot. So I went to Wikipedia, the source of all truth on the internet. They explain it as this: involves a person's emotions, attitudes about using a particular product, system, or service, includes a person's perceptions of system aspects such as utility, ease of use, and efficiency. As they kind of added that too. It's still focused on systems, products. It still feels very web specific, very digital specific. So I then started to ask, what is it that we do? And what's the public perception? How many of you heard this statement when you, over the holidays at your Thanksgiving or your holiday dinner? You're trying to explain to your uncle, your aunt, your grandmother, even probably your own parents, what it is that you do for a living. Finally, that light bulb goes off. They look at you like they've just figured it all out, and they say, right, so you design websites. Maybe they say you design mobile apps. They probably then look at you, they pull out their phone, and they start asking you to be their personal tech assistant. And why doesn't Amazon let them do this? Why doesn't, when I touch this on my phone, it do that? It sucks, right? So this isn't us either. So I started to put a list of titles, roles, responsibilities, and I came up with this as my starting point. So design thinker, that's a new term that's come up in the last several years. It's really about strategy, I think. Content strategists, information architects, UX designers. When I talk to people who refer to themselves as a UX designer, a lot of them tell me their output is nothing more than a wireframe. I say it's way more than a wireframe. Engineers, visual designers, UI designers. You'll notice that this list, I'm up here telling you I want you to think beyond digital, but this list is very digital specific. It's probably the exact list of people that you sit next to in your office. So with that in mind, I wanted to play a little game with you guys. You don't have to raise your hand, just yell it out. Anyone know who this guy is here? Yeah. Right. Luke Grabowski. How about this guy? Anyone? Brad Frost. Right. Anyone? Karen McGrain. So I don't know what just happened. Jim? I'm going to talk a little bit about Karen while we figure out what happened. Karen is one of the few people that I've actually, oh, thank you. I've actually seen, it was that easy, that I've actually seen speak at a conference and inspired me so greatly that I went to work the next day talking about it. It changed the way I thought. That presentation is called Uncle Sam Wants You to Go Responsive. I saw actually her present this here in DC at Event Apart. I think it was 2012, might have been 13. The information she shares in that talk alone, I mean, it's just staggering. So it really just changed the way I thought about design, what mattered, what was important. I recommend it. Look it up. How about this guy? I just kind of gave it away. Event Apart. No? Zeldman. Yep, Jeffrey Zeldman. This one might be a little tougher, but again, there you go. Good job. So if you're interested in UI animation, animation in particular, she's great. She's a great presenter. She gives really great talks. I would look her up. I've only got a few more of these, I promise, but it's getting good. Not that it isn't already. Anyone? No? Jeremy Keith. Also a great UX design presenter. If you want to know more about progressive enhancement, look him up. Jeremy Keith, it's pretty exceptional. This one should be easy. Ethan Marcotte, right? So I've already talked about him. So again, grandfather of responsive web design. I mean, Boston Globe kind of set the standard for what that has become. This is where it gets a little tricky. Anyone have any idea who this gentleman might be? So this is Larry Harvey. He's the founder of Burning Man. And I would say, without a doubt, an experienced designer. So Burning Man, we all know what Burning Man is, I think. So Burning Man is really, about celebrating a counterculture, about celebrating art, creativity. Why I wanted to focus on Burning Man was really about the experience of it. Burning Man is something that has grown over the years. It was mid-'80s, I think 86. It started in San Francisco, just a few friends. Over the course of the years, it got bigger. It moved from San Francisco to the desert. And it's really become, I think in 2015, there was roughly 60, maybe 70,000 people participating in Burning Man. It's far bigger than this group ever expected it to be. It's now something slightly different. There's corporate sponsors and that's part of it. But thinking about it as a large-scale experience, and then all the multiple experiences that happen, the individual experience, the experience of the artist, the experience of the communities, the little subcultures within the larger culture. It's just a pretty interesting thing. It starts to make, at least me, I start to think about how does the interaction from this piece work or influence with that other piece? What is the bigger experience and how does it break into smaller pieces? This one's a little timely. I just added it today. The picture's horrible, but I apologize. Anyone have a thought about who this guy is? No? Roland Swenson, co-founder of South by Southwest. So I'm not going to talk a lot about this. I assume we all know what South by Southwest is, but it started as an independent music festival. A few bands, a few venues, a few days. Over the course of years, this also started in the mid-'80s. It is now the largest music festival in the world. It's becoming the largest technology festival worldwide and one of the largest film festivals worldwide. It's had a global impact on design and music and culture. It in fact kind of shut down, if anyone's not been, it pretty much shuts down Austin for about a month, but it generates a lion's share of the revenue for small businesses, their yearly annual small business revenue. It brings a massive number of people together. And from different skill sets, different cultures, different interests. You start to think again about that big experience and then all the smaller subcultures and sub-experiences that happen within it. So again, I'd call him an experienced designer without a doubt. This is one of my favorite. This one's really interesting. I warn you, I'll talk about this one for a little while. But anyone have a thought about who this guy might be? The clue is in the background. So his name is Willie Williams. He's a set and lighting designer. He's worked with the band U2 since about 1982. And without a doubt, an experienced designer.
Hey Rob, do me a favor. Can
yes, sir.
You shift the mic up a little higher? The folks on the live stream are having a hard time hearing.
Okay. Sorry, live stream. All right, there we go. How's that? We'll see. We'll see. Like I'm asking the internet. How is that? That's great. All right, so Willie Williams. So I'd say, without a doubt, an experienced designer. And in 1982, the band launched their Octoon Baby album. This also changed the paradigm of the concert experience as we know. It's a multimedia event. It's in a large forum. It's scalable from Coliseum up to 100,000 seat arena stadium. In fact, this video is actually shot in RFK Stadium here in DC. I was also, but a great event. So the point here being, it's a large-scale event. It's an interaction with the audience. It takes multiple skill sets to put this event together. It's choreographed. It is designed. It's choreographed in the sense that every time Bono sings a certain line in a specific song, he reaches down and touches the audience. It feels very natural. It feels as if it was not. It sees and pulls that off. It feels natural. It doesn't feel like there's any intent behind it other than reaching out to the audience at that specific time. The way the band interacts with the video screens in the background. In fact, in this concert, every one of this tour for almost 2 years, He would interact in a way with remote control and flip through local news channel, local TV. He would call the president of the United States, or at least call the White House attention every day throughout this tour. It's a multimedia interactive event, and it's something that empowers not only the audience, but the still seen today. This was the pinnacle of the concert experience in 1992. It is still what we expect to see today. Choreographed, multimedia, large cinema display, fire, lights. This one's easy. This one's a no-brainer. Steven Spielberg. A director, right? Also an experienced designer. So in 1975, I believe it was, maybe 76, summer, Jaws came out. Awesome movie. Still one of the best examples of a horror film to date. And it had a huge impact on the entire tour industry of the East Coast of the US. People were terrified to get in the water. People still are. He tapped into a very natural human object, which is the fear of the unknown. And how did he do this with a character, the shark, that has less than 7 minutes of screen time? Well, it's that combination of cinematography, lighting, direction, obviously music. You can't talk about sharks today without someone humming this tune in the background. Right? It's become part of our common vernacular, part of our everyday experience. Is there anyone that actually hasn't seen New Jaws in the audience? Yeah, really? You should check it out. It's old. You probably look at it and wonder, think it's horrible, or where's the CGI? It doesn't need it, guys. So what do these all have in common? Well, this is where the magic happens, right? They understand the audience. They understand the needs of the audience. They're a product of multiple disciplines. They're well thought, well designed, well executed. This is starting to sound really familiar, right? This is what we do. The design enhances the experience, and the human impact outlives the experience. We're still talking about Jaws. People are still humming that song. It still scares the shit out of people to go into the ocean and to think about what lies beneath them, right? And that, I think, is pretty exceptional. It's great to think that we could design something that outlives us or grows in a way that is far greater than what we ever intended it to be. So I was challenged by this idea by one of my peers at work, and we started really tossing around some ideas. How does that have anything to do with what we as UX designers do? So we started to think about the roles. Your producer, your promoter, your design thinker, they're talking about strategy, the right venue, the right approach. They're finding the funds, the budget. The writer, the songwriter, the content strategist. They're dealing with language, they're dealing with words. Directors, stage managers, information architect, how does it all come together? Director of photography, choreography, that's your UX design, maybe your wireframe. Sound lights in both concerts and film, obviously. Accessibility is kind of where I tied that in. It might be a stretch. I'm not going to talk a lot about accessibility or much more than this, but it's essential to any experience. If you're not designing your experiences to be accessible by anyone and everyone, then you're doing a disservice to your customers. Set design, stage design, that's where it all comes together. There's, I kind of compare that to the engineer. That's the things that are built, the things that are put together for the sake of the venue, the experience. Your actors, your band, your musicians, your visual designers, these are kind of your rock stars. They get all the glory. They get all the attention. But all of which, there's no point without an audience, right? So I think this makes a lot of sense to me when we start to think about experience design. I want to touch on this one. This one's a really interesting one that I'm kind of new to. I just learned about this a few years ago. Does anyone know what this is or maybe attended one? No? Silent disco. Right, so this is something that was, I think the first of a silent disco was in Belgium, early 2000s. Two DJs, decided instead of having a sound system blaring out the music, they would invite a room full of people, give them wireless headsets, and they would play the music through the headphones. It's a really interesting concept, right? You're having this event that traditionally is in a loud environment. You're toning it down. You're removing basically one of those layers and allowing this experience to grow. Now, what I think is really interesting about this, I'll show you a video. Again, this is an experience that people have gravitated towards and kind of taken it and made their own out of it. This is an example of some college kids finding a venue, a library, where you have to be quiet, middle of finals week, and they throw a party. Pretty cool, right? This is actually becoming pretty popular. A lot of music festivals have big tents, silent discos, comedians are doing silent performances, full bands are doing silent performances. It's an evolution of the experience. What I think is really interesting about this, much like Burning Man, there's people here who didn't know this was going to happen. They're just there to study. They're really focused on that exam and what they need to do to pass that exam. Start thinking about the experience those people have. That's pretty interesting too, right? Do they think it's funny? Are they pissed off and angry? Here they are right here. They have no clue about what's going on, right? That's pretty interesting. Now, I'll tell you how I heard first of silent discos. I was in San Francisco, and apparently this is pretty common. I think I've heard they even have them up here like pretty regularly. And someone told me there's thousands of people that are going to meet in Golden Gate Park for the silent disco event. It's awesome. And I started really thinking about it, and I was just like, what is it? What is this thing? How does it work? It was explained to me. My head then goes in 5 different directions, and I start thinking, okay, so there's 1,000 people with headphones in the park. They're listening to music. That's cool. What happens if the DJ decides that he's going to run a multivariate test and 20%, he's going to divide his audience of 1,000 by 5, 20%, he's going to spread out 5 different types of music across his entire audience. What would happen? That's pretty cool, right? Do you think you would see different patterns of rhythms? Maybe, you know, there's jazz, there's you know, reggae, there's punk rock going on, whatever, there's techno. Would you start to see these patterns emerge, different people moving to different beats, different rhythms? Would those people start to find themselves? And then those clusters, those cultures start to, I don't know, it's pretty awesome. Now think about these other people that are just in the park walking their dog, having a picnic. You know, they're there for a jog. What kind of experience are they now having? That's pretty interesting. Now this is going to be fun for me at least, because this is some personal experiences that I've gone through the last couple months that I'm going to share with you. They were pretty horrible experiences, real world experiences that lacked any amount of design whatsoever. I titled this provocatively, WTF UX, okay? So a Dunkin' Donuts opens up in my neighborhood recently, about 6 to 8 months ago. I pass it every day going to work. I was good the first couple weeks. I didn't stop in. I then pull in. I need some breakfast, I need some sugar, maybe an iced tea. I order a donut. Everything's great. It's exactly what I expected. A month goes by. I'm starting to go there more frequently. Starting to gain a little weight, starting to go more frequently, and I started to notice a shift in the customer service. I'm a creature of habit. I order the same donut. I order the same drink every time, right? Started getting the wrong drink. Started getting the wrong donut very frequently. It's a hard picture. This is what I got. Anyone, can you tell what this is? Internet, you may not be able to. This is 2 donuts top down in a bag. This is what happens to your Boston cream when you put it top down in a bag. This is exactly what I think when I get my Boston cream top down in a bag. So I decided to run a test. I decided to go to Dunkin' Donuts 5 days in a row, 1 work week. Every day I ordered the same 2 donuts and I ordered the same drink. Now 3 out of 5 days I got the wrong donut. 2 out of 5 days I got the wrong drink. Instead of an iced tea, I got an iced coffee or maybe a sweet tea instead of an unsweet. 5 out of 5 days, my donut was in the bag upside down and I got this. And once again, this. Now, I'll talk about a different experience. Starbucks. I'm not here to promote Starbucks. I'm not here to, you know, although I do have a Starbucks cup here on the desk. But really what I want to talk about is a different experience where the company actually put some thought into their customer experience and the customer interaction with their employees. Now Starbucks, I'm kind of new to Starbucks, I'll admit. There's one on my campus at work. I go there every day now. I get my iced tea. But what I noticed very quickly was that by the second, third time I went in, they were now calling me by name. So they're asking your name for your cup. You think, well, they just want to keep the orders together and not get anything mixed up. That's cool in itself, but you know what? It's actually a memorization technique. They're asking you for your order. They're asking you what your name is. They're recognizing you, your name, your drink. Their expectation, Starbucks, by the third, maybe fifth time that you come in to their Starbucks location, you see the same barista, the same counter person. They want that counter person to start calling you by your name, asking you if you want your usual drink, because we're all creatures of habit, right? We all go into the same Starbucks. We all order the same thing. 3-4 days in, hey, Rob, how are you doing? Oh, that's cool. They know me. 5 days in, I get to the counter and it's, hey, Rob, would you like your unsweetened iced tea? Trenta, whatever it is. Yeah, I sure would. You just took 3 steps out of this whole process. Awesome. I love that. That's a pretty exceptional customer experience, right? So, in fact, I am such a habitual Starbucks user now. It's pretty horrible. But before I even get to the counter, they see me coming. I don't even get that same greeting anymore. It's just, hey, Rob, how are you? Here's your drink, $2.87. You ready to swipe? It's that easy. They know me. It's that easy for me to get what I'm after. Now, occasionally, I don't want the iced tea, or I want something instead of the iced tea or in addition to. No harm, no foul. They tried their best, and I really appreciate it. That's a pretty exceptional experience. Now, here's another. I'm married. I have a son. I don't get a lot of time to myself. I'm sure a lot of you can probably relate to that. My wife and my son were off seeing the grandparents one day. I had some time to kill. Finished cutting the grass. They weren't going to be home for a few hours. I thought I'd take a drive. While I'm taking this drive, I decide, you know what? I'm driving a car that's 10 years old. Maybe I'll stop in on the motor mile where there's every dealership known to man. And I'll pull in and I'll just start looking at some cars. I have no intention of buying a car, but it's something I've kind of been tossing around thinking about. It's something that I'm noticing, hey, my car's 10 years old. It's breaking down. I'm spending money. Why not put that money to better use? I'm not really a car guy either, so I just pull in the first lot. It happens to be a Land Rover lot. Now, mind you, it's a Saturday. I just cut the grass. I'm in t-shirt and jeans. I admittedly am covered in tattoos from neck to ankles. Probably not the average purchaser of a Land Rover. But I walk on the lot. I take a walk. I look at the cars. I find one that I'm kind of interested in. Yeah, this looks cool. Looks like something I could drive. I notice at this point, I look down, not at my watch, but at my phone, because that's how we do it nowadays. And I recognize, so I've been on the lot for almost 10 minutes and not a single salesperson has come out to talk to me. Generally, I'm okay with that because I'm not a big fan of salespeople. But then I look and I'm only about 20 yards from the showroom. That's all nice and glassy walled. And there's 2 salesmen at their desks looking at me. So I'm like, all right, maybe they're sizing me up. Maybe they don't want to deal with me. Maybe they don't think they're going to get a sale. Probably not the best approach for a salesperson. So I decide, okay, let me test this. I fold my arms, I lean up against the hood of the car, and I just stare at them. And I'm thinking, how long is it going to take for these guys to come talk to me? I kid you not, 23 minutes. Okay? That's exactly how I felt. At this point, I had a point to prove, right? So finally, and I guarantee you they Rochambeau'd me. They rock, paper, scissors to see who had to come out. The guy comes out, how you doing, sir? How can I help you? My answer was, what can I help you with? It's kind of a stupid question. First off, I'm here standing next to a car on your lot. But my response to that was, nothing, thanks. You could have 15 minutes ago. And I started walking to my car. Now this guy's following me at this point. He's like, no, wait. Pretty horrible experience, right? Trying to buy a car. So again, I've got some time to kill. I'm not defeated yet. I pull into the next lot. It's a Toyota. My wife's got a Toyota. It's cool, whatever. So I do the same thing. I park my car. Now the design of the layout of the dealership's a little different. You actually have to walk through the front door of the showroom, through the back door to get to the lot where the cars are. I feel like Toyota does this on purpose, and they think it's pretty smart to bombard you with salespeople before you get out the door, right? And that's exactly what they did. I walked halfway through the showroom. I then had 5 salespeople surrounding me, really pushy, really aggressive. All, what can I do for you? What are you here for? What can I sell you? Sell. Pretty negative reaction to this. I just simply said no thanks and turned around and walked out the door. I never even made it to the lot. Completely opposite from the first experience, just as bad. Again, right? So I feel like, okay, third time's the charm. After this one, I'm giving up. I don't need to buy a car anyway. I pull into the Subaru lot. At this point, I don't want to deal with any people. I do a lap in my car. No harm, no foul there. If I don't see anything I like, I just keep driving. I go home, on with my day. I see a car that looks pretty cool. It was this one. I don't remember what it's called. Whatever. But I like it. It looks like something I could drive. I think I've seen the commercial. Okay, so there's some branding there, some brand awareness there. It's cool. I park. I walk over to it. Check out the sticker, walk around. I then see a guy walking through the lot, coming my way. But you know what? He's got a smile on his face. He's got a little bit of swagger. He doesn't look like an asshole. He comes up to me. I think what he's doing is actually his job, sizing me up, figuring out what it is that I'm there to do or what I want, what I might want. He comes up to me, and instead of trying to sell me something right away, he greets me. He says hi. He introduces himself. He sees me wearing a t-shirt and jeans. I might have had like a Thrasher cap or a Vans t-shirt on. Hey man, do you skateboard? Well, you know what? I sure do. Wow, that's cool. I wasn't expecting that. So then when he starts talking, oh yeah, I used to skate when I was a kid, but my knees are bad. You know what? I don't have any cartilage in my left knee from the time I was snowboarding, fell, turned it around, and it was wrapped the wrong way. You know what? You just got me twice, 2 for 2, all right? So we start talking. He starts throwing out some, skateboarder names, some Bones Brigade, some 1980s stuff, references. I'm like, wow, that's, we're like the same guy. Cool, right? So now he's made a connection. We're having a conversation. It has nothing to do with the car. He's getting to know me. I now feel comfortable. I trust the guy. He's not going to screw me. We're both old skaters, and we've got bum knees, and we like Tony Hawk or whatever it was, So he just asked me a simple question. You want to take it for a test drive? Sure. Let's go. So we drive for, 10 minutes. Again, we just kind of talk shop. We're talking, 1980s pop culture stuff and listening to the radio and having a good conversation. He's still not really trying to sell me anything, but at the same time, he's not keeping me from doing what it is that I was there to do, which was just look at a car and maybe, I didn't know I wanted to test drive, but cool, now I am. By the time we make the U-turn and we're starting back to the lot, he starts going into anything you don't like. Again, he's not pushing anything on me. He's just asking for me for my feedback and my opinion. Is there anything I don't like? There's actually not. It's an okay car. Again, I'm not a car guy. It gets me to A to B. What's the gas mileage? Now I'm engaged, right? He tells me 35, 40 miles to the gallon, city, all the stuff. We get back to the lot. We pull in. An hour later, I left with a brand new car. Right? Because the experience was so engaging, powerful. He didn't get in my way. He actually fostered me through the experience, helped me from one point to the next in a way that made me feel comfortable, made me feel safe. I trusted the guy. It was just pleasant. If nothing else, it was just pleasant. Yeah.
Is that how you justify it to your wife?
No. No. But good question. I'm not going to answer it. But point being, I went in there with a thought I might someday soon buy a car. I left with a car all because of the experience I had. Now, granted, it was in part because of the negative, horrible experiences I had before that he had no idea that I had just gone through. But regardless, he did his job really well. Pretty awesome.
And you didn't remember the car type?
No, I can't remember it. It's not the Outback. It's the other one. Crosstech. Trek. Whatever. No, I'm not a car guy. But the point here is this. Customer experience is user experience, right? We are all customers of something. We are all designing experiences for the sake of either gaining customers, growing our customer base, delivering a service or a product. Now, I swore I wasn't here to talk anything Capital One. This is not Capital One related. It is simply an easy example for me to give because it's bank related. I wanna expand on that customer experience. I wanna talk a little more about the different touch points, what happens before and after. So I'm gonna use a credit card, a Visa card, as the product. Now over here, we've got TV ads, print ads, direct mail, email, search engines, social media. These are all ways that we traditionally market digitally. And actually not only digitally, so there's print in there. Variety of ways that our companies will market their products to get me to go to a website, a landing page, or a microsite. At which point, as we all know this funnel, they want me to hit a call to action. That's probably apply now in this case, get the card, then sends me to some long form that I've got to fill out, ultimately resulting in me getting a credit card. I get it in the mail. Now, once I have the product, I'm spending, I'm buying, I'm shopping. Maybe I interact with a mobile app to make my payments. Maybe I log into a website. We refer to it as web servicing. Maybe I log into a website to make payments or move money around. What about all these other touch points? What about testimonials, things like brand reputation? What about word of mouth? Your friend, your colleague, your aunt, your uncle who tells you, hey, I've got this great credit card. You should check it out. What about that? What about what we refer to as traditionalists who would rather have a human connection and go into a physical branch? Now, again, the result is the same. We hope they get this Visa card, this credit card product. Maybe it's a debit card. What about the ATM experience? Whether it's a walk-up or a drive-thru. What about customer service? Something goes wrong. I log in, the app doesn't work. I'm having trouble. I lose my card. So I'm calling someone to talk on the phone with them to solve whatever this problem might be. Let's take it a step further. What about the in-store purchase? What is that experience like? Is that something that we can control? Is that something we can redesign? I say so. I want to focus on this for just a minute, customer service. Only in the world of stock imagery do the customer service representatives look like this. Well manicured, newly bleached teeth, perfect makeup and hair. In fact, call centers look something more like this. Maybe not this drab, maybe not this depressing, but they're not this, okay? I had an opportunity a couple years ago to spend some time with some call center agents. Now, I went there thinking I was going to sit down next to someone. I was going to hear complaints from callers. I was going to hear their challenges, their problems. I would start defining some patterns, and I would start putting together an inventory of things that we needed to solve next. I did that, but what I put at the top of the list was actually improving the customer service agent experience. Their software was outdated. If a customer was calling that had a checking account and a savings account, or a credit card and a checking account, and had an issue with their multiple product accounts, the call center agent had 3 displays, all with the same application open, just so they could see 3 different instances of the product, so they could help this person. Now, customer service, the thing is, the person on the other end, they're already upset, they're already pissed off, they're having a bad time with whatever it is, the service or the product that your company is giving them. It's not a great place to be, right? If you have that job as a customer service agent, you're dealing with pissed off people all day. Now, on top of that, you've got really shitty software that you're trying to use, tools you're trying to use. What about the experience of that customer service agent? Can we make their lives better? And by doing that, can we make the life of the person that's calling them better? Instead of reading off of some script that feels like a user manual or an encyclopedia, can they talk to the user or the customer in a way that feels more natural, more like a conversation? Even more or beyond that, can the words and the language that they're using reflect the product that the customer has? Can it then reflect back to the ad campaign and the brand personality or tone of voice that the customer expects? Can the call center agent language and conversation with the customer improve the brand awareness? I think so. So by improving the tools that these call center agents use, we haven't done it fully. We're not there yet, but we are starting to. But by improving that, you streamline the experience that not only they have, but the customer on the other end of the phone have. Now they go away happy, the problem's solved. Instead of taking 20 minutes, it took 3. They're now providing that word of mouth that I mentioned earlier, right? So with that in mind, it's a cliche. We as designers are often asked to think outside the box, right? So with that, I simply challenge all of us to go to work tomorrow and start thinking a little differently about what experience design is. Let's get rid of that word user. Let's start thinking bigger. Let's start thinking more broadly. Let's start thinking about what happens before and after they engage with the experience that we've just designed. It's much bigger than that. How can we improve the experience and the reputation of our brand, our product? How does the one touch point interact with the next? That requires a lot of training, a lot of thought, a lot of education across our, not only our peer groups, our product partners, our business in general. But it can be done. And it's really up to us to start that, right? So for those of you, I know a bunch of you raised your hands that you were, product owners, I believe, right? So it's up to us to kind of work with you to kind of spread this message. And I tell you, as of today, like I no longer refer to myself as a user experience designer, simply an experience designer, right? And I hope that that's something that you guys can agree with, can consider, and can maybe spread that word out. And it's grassroots, right? We just spread that. One day it shall be, right? So with that, we are experience designers. All of us in the room, regardless of whether you're a visual designer, a content strategist, a product owner, an engineer, we're all part of that big puzzle, right? So thank you. That's the end of it. I hope it was fun. I had a great time. I'm happy to take questions. I don't know what the protocol is or what the time is. But,
Anybody? Lots of awesome stuff. Any questions? Anybody? One in the back.
Yeah.
As far as removing user and taking the just design experience, how is that grown throughout where you had a capital design as far as how the team thinks about products or sites or anything they're doing as far as themselves as an experience designer?
So I can tell you that, yeah, sorry, I'm off the internet. So I can tell you that there's a couple of my peers here, so if I get this wrong, you guys can jump in. But as a culture at Capital One where I work, our community has grown greatly in the last several years. We've expanded from a team that really was primarily visual designers, a few engineers, to a group that now has design thinkers, content strategists. We work hand in hand with our product groups and our tech groups. And we, as a culture, haven't really discussed like removing the word user. We are a UX culture and a design culture at Capital One. But we are gravitating more towards human-centered design, right? Human experience design are words that we're using pretty frequently around our campuses and in our workspace. So it's starting to kind of evolve from user to human to simply experience. It's not something, I think that we inherently, the group of us have kind of fostered, and it's just kind of bubbled up naturally. But it's still pretty young. I don't know. Yes, sir.
Do you have your team look at some of the competing sites and maybe Bank of America or the other banks?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, so we're a pretty big team now, well over mid 250 range across a bunch of cities. We're all focused on different products, different lines of business. So yes, I think that's a common practice. If it's not, then we're doing something wrong. We should always be aware of the competition. One thing that we are doing though is we're not focusing specifically on banks. We are looking at Bank of America, Citi, or Chase, but we're also looking at Adidas, Nike. We're looking at Apple. We're looking at a wide variety of consumer retailers, online retailers. We're looking at technology leaders, and we're building and establishing ourselves as peers of that culture and that group, not just banks. We are a top 10 bank, but we tend to focus on much bigger things than just being a bank. Anyone else?
Questions?
Yeah.
How do you get everyone to speak all the different parts of the team, speak the same language, have the same priorities of language? Because software engineers, someone cares more, they care about lines of code.
Yeah, no, that's great. So we have within our design culture, we do have an engineering role. I myself kind of started, or at least midway through my career, moved into that role. And something that I've been focusing on, and I think more recently our entire culture has been focusing on, is a common language. We're starting with the common visual language. That again is kind of our way of not only delivering consistent design patterns across the entire company, it's our way of collaborating together. It's also our way of like fostering and communicating design throughout the organization, including our tech partners and our development partners. I'm actually kicking off a group within my team that we're referring to as One Code, which is kind of the counterpart to the design language. It's how do we implement the design language? And we are working hand in hand with our technology partners, our developers, front end and back end. And that's something we're starting to define, a common language, a common glossary of terms for us to all be using. I think project by project, that's a pretty common practice for us too. In fact, I'm doing a lot of work with our brand group right now. And one of the first things we do as we kick off a new exercise is define what we're doing, but also define how we're going to communicate and how we're going to talk about what we're doing. If we're talking about iconography, are we going to use the word glyph or illustration? Are we going to use UI or feature? We're going to decide on what the words are, and then that consistently is what we will communicate, whether we're talking to one another or someone else. So again, it's something that it happens not quickly, but someone's got to put the foot forward to kind of start fostering that and make it happen. So it could be you. Could be. Anything else? Yeah.
I had a question. So I learned recently, and I've been thinking about how places like Uber and Airbnb will kind of do this bubble up testing, pulling out like pain points and feature requests, like from drivers, from people who run the places.
Yeah, that's great.
Rather than just kind of doing like a top down, like we were doing experiment to do X, or like X executive didn't like this click or whatever.
Those are the worst kind of tests you could possibly do. Yeah.
Are you sort of, I guess, what do you think about it, how to enable that bubbling up and making it like super seamless for the people at the sort of bottom level, right? Because customer level. So like,
Yeah. So we refer to that as empathy research as part of our design thinking role. And we've got a really exceptional team that's been growing with us over the last few years, and they kind of educate out. It's something that, again, it took a little bit of time, but design thinking, as one of our executives says kind of repeatedly the last 2 years at presentations, is this thing that we call design thinking. It's only a year old in our culture, but it's referred to very often as the Capital One way we do things. We're using design thinking the way we always would or always should, right? It's pretty interesting like how these things kind of grow naturally. You just have to have a really strong kind of leadership layer and willingness to kind of do the work at the ground floor and educate and spread that message. But as far as what you're talking about, we tend to do that with nearly everything we do now. It is part of our design practice. We start with user empathy research. We start asking them questions. We don't assume that we know the problems that need to be solved until we talk to them and start defining patterns and defining problems that they tell us need to be solved. It's not how we've always done it. We very much did the line of business model or the executive model or the product owner model, saying, I'm going to test X and I'm going to do that because of any number of reasons. What I found in my history at Capital One and other places is that when you think that way, you often skew the test to get the results you want, not the results that matter. So that's a great question. Yeah.
Could you take a minute to kind of describe the process in terms of, you mentioned user empathy research, in terms of gathering the actual requirements and then how you deliver that ultimately and what we actually see on the screen?
Sure. I think, so we follow an agile model. Part of that, I'm very adamant that what my group does is based on requirements. That comes from both technical requirements, business strategy requirements, the empathy research requirements, and we as a group pull that together to write whatever document that is. It helps us define what our targets are. It helps us define what success is. It also, if you're in a world where you have to focus on MVP, then it allows us to prioritize those requirements and build towards that early stage, that beta or that minimal viable product. And then also sets us up in a way, if we have to take, if there's 10 features and we have to take 3 of them off because we don't have time because of a deadline or a budget, or maybe there's a technical issue that the platform isn't set up yet, and we have to wait for them to provide a feature so that we can meet this requirement. We can take a few things off, we can deliver the rest of them, but those 2 or 3 that we took off, they're in our line of sight, and we are considering solutions that will enable us to deliver those as well. So that's kind of how my group has worked for a little while. I think every group, again, our team is so big, I think each group has a variation of that. I've seen a lot of success with that, though. Yeah, I think you had a question. No? I thought someone over here did. Oh, maybe it was you. Sorry.
You were talking about kind of common terminology.
Uh-huh.
What happens when you different tools that might have different words for the same thing that conflict with your company's terminology? How do you?
Oh, that's a great question too. The short answer is I don't really know. I think it just depends. I think we as a group, as a culture, are pretty good at adapting, bobbing, weaving, shifting, evolving. So if we run into that, I trust that we solve for it, and maybe we do have to, in that respect, call the same thing 2 different things, or maybe we even come up with a new 3rd thing that defines both. I don't know. It depends on the circumstance or the context of the situation, I think. I don't have a great answer for you, but that's where my head's at with it. Is that it? Yeah.
One which is something that I occasionally run into is trying to, you can have the brilliant 10,000 foot level view of this, but how to get the stakeholder buy-in from both the local supplier and the local supplier, if people can actually do what's necessary to kind of make this law.
Are you talking about selling an idea, or are you talking like to a higher level, or are you talking about something different? Can you give me a little more context there, I guess.
Because I can clearly see that this is definitely the way to engage people. You have to address their entire experience. But I've run into cases where I'm working with people, the person above me, say, the president, the C-level people, it's like they don't immediately see the value.
So sometimes you have to bring them along. Sometimes part of the design experience is actually bringing them along with you, and again, it's educating them or proving the power. Data is a great thing. So we use requirements and data equally, I think. I'll give you an example of where data became kind of my best friend for a minute. I mentioned earlier, I was in charge of kind of leading the strategy for taking CapitalOne.com and making it a responsive site. We were in a position to be the first bank to do so, and that was a real challenge for a lot of people. How could I prove that what we were doing was the right thing? It wouldn't cause some catastrophe in the end. We did 2 things. One, we showed them. We started working in a development environment, a pre-production environment. We had already written the majority of the code that was going to do this for us, and we demoed it. So that was one way. If you get an executive in a room, or whoever your leadership is, or just your peers, get them in the room and show them. That's a great tool. That's a great way. I mean, the proof is right there. The other thing prior to that was data. What I found, though, and I think I mentioned this earlier, data can be skewed. You can make a case for any argument that you want with the right data manipulated the right way. What we did was try for that case, that responsive effort, was find the right data. We had an MDOT site. It was only able to support a certain number of users each month. They had kind of a limit or a cap on how much traffic could come through. It was only promoting a very slim amount of products. It was not dynamic content. It was, of course, all the obvious stuff, separate code, separate platform and whatnot. But the detail that really mattered, we started looking at how many people are abandoning this experience right from the gate. Of course, there was a view full site link. We started paying attention to that link. We found that 96% of the traffic going to our MDOT was hitting that link and going to our full website that they pinched and zoomed to get through. Right, wow. So as soon as we shared that with our leaders, we changed our whole kind of dynamic, and our rally cry was actually, we are now delivering this service for the 96% of our mobile customers. It didn't become about anything business related or monetary gains. It was, How are we going to make that experience better? We fought hard to get rid of the M dot. It didn't go away immediately, but within like 2 months it was killed. And, we had kind of proven our point. We had proven the point in advance to get that buy-in from our leadership. They gave us the runway. We went flying, and, we haven't gone back. And in fact, it was a pretty big deal for Capital One. It was a big deal for all of us that worked on it. And it's just part of the common way that we do things. We don't deliver experiences that are not responsive. Some are going to be adaptive, which is even better. If anyone has a web-enabled watch, if you go to capitalone.com, you'll actually get an adaptive experience that was designed for a smartphone. It works perfectly on the watch. I just learned this the other day. I don't know why I hadn't thought about it sooner, but I had someone pull it up on an Android watch, shoot a little video capture for me. It recognizes it as a device smaller than a tablet, and therefore pulls in all the adaptive features. And it's pretty awesome. We didn't have to do anything. We were smart in the way we delivered that adaptive and responsive strategy. Now it truly is device agnostic, no matter how big or small. It's pretty awesome. So to answer your question, that was a little bit of showboating. I apologize. To answer your question, it's a variety. It's a mixture of finding the right argument to make, educating and bringing them along with you, and then finding the right data points that support your intent. And some of that empathy research too. One last thing, we capture that on video. We transcribe it, showing your customers in an interview session where they're telling you that what you're doing isn't what they need to do the thing that they want to do. That's pretty powerful too. That goes a long way. You don't need a lot of those types of videos to really get the message across. Yeah.
At least in my experience, I typically my site's for a specific audience, so I know pretty well age range, education level. You guys, give a very broad audience, all age groups.
It's a challenge.
So what are you shooting for? I mean, are you shooting for this group here on the screen, this young kid group, or do you got a service?
We are. So I think the answer to that is it's a challenge. I think depending on the product, we may design specific experiences and products for millennials as we need to gain a new audience. But we don't do that in spite of our existing audience. Our existing demographics are, I don't want to say elderly, but our audience that is not the hip millennial. We need to provide services for everyone, regardless of age, regardless of location, regardless of position in life, whether it's you're looking for a college loan or paying off a college loan, starting credit worthiness, if you're thinking about retirement or home purchasing. We have, that's an interesting thing about the space I work in with the .com, is that I need to think about solutions that support all of our business models, which means I also have to be thinking about the millennial, the people my age, which is early 40s, and then beyond that. So we really need to be thinking. I think this is where the content strategy group comes into play, right? How do we talk to people who are in different spaces in their life? How do we not use buzzwords and hashtags to someone my age? Because I get it. I speak that language, but probably not all that appropriate for even people my age. And how do we not look down on or talk down to millennials or younger audiences? So it's really about tailoring the content, tailoring the experience, building a dynamic framework that allows you to do that, and then having the power to test all of these things. We're very much a test and learn model and approach and culture. So it's really, if you don't do it right the first time, let's try something different. Let's figure out what that sweet spot is. In fact, I'll give you this. This was just an idea that myself and one of my peers were talking about when we started talking about that very thing. And how do we make sure that we're talking to people the way that makes sense to them? Really start to think about how you can access information in a way that gives you what you need to figure out who people are. It's not just cookies. It's not just, the way Amazon, what did you view last time? What do we think you're going to view next time? But if you're a customer and you filled out a credit card application, we have access to your date of birth, right? We know your zip code. We know where you're located. Think about starting to tailor even marketing banners, something as simple as a banner. If you're in New York City, the same message can be delivered, but maybe in the background, it's the cityscape and the Statue of Liberty. If you're in Texas, maybe it's cowboy boots and rattlesnakes. I don't know. But that feels familiar. That feels customized to me, right? It's not as big brotherish. It's not as scary as some other techniques that are out there, but Beyond that, you can start thinking about the words you're using, and really promoting the right product or the right solution, the right feature at the right time of the experience, and really be thinking about, who you're talking to, what you might already know, combining these things. What did they do the last time? Were they looking at a home loan in our context? Were they looking for a home loan? Do we know what zip code they're in? Can we reference some data that can help us dynamically pull that experience together? Stop thinking about static experiences. Dynamic is truly the way to go, and it's all based on as much data as you can collect on the back end, and how do you serve that up on the front end? Yeah, sure.
So you're talking about gathering requirements from stakeholders, and you're talking about getting it from analytics. How much does customer feedback play into those?
Quite a bit, depending on what the effort is at the time. We keep track. We track data on everything, at least on the .com. Every page view, every link, every the feedback. It's all part of. We get reports every, I think, 2 weeks. I get an email, and a broad team gets an email. Here's the dissatisfaction survey, I think is what it's called, and it itemizes. Here's what the complaints are. Here's where they're coming from. Here's what they're related to, whether it's signing into the servicing experience, whether it's something on a mobile device. Because we're tracking all this thing, because we have the adaptive experience, we can get all that information by device type, by zip code, by region. We can get, are you in the bank footprint? We call it regional, I think, or in footprint. Thank you. And so is there a brick and mortar presence? Is there not? So we know all of this about our customers, or we hope to. We do our best guess at it as they come into the .com, and we start building based on what we know and what we can predict or what we think we know. That answer?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
I was going to say, I think one of the subtle but really valuable uses of that, zip code, even location, is if you go to Meetup, when you go to the search box, it's not just the Google search box, blank, type anything here. It actually says, find meetups near you would be a default search.
Right.
That's, super smart. So alternative, you're wait, so I have to figure out, what does it think of as cities? Does it want a zip code? It just automatically populates that.
And it's so much easier today than it was even a year ago. There's GeoIP, there's, all sorts of ways that we can, if the customer, in our case, if someone's actually entered their zip code, because at one time that was required, it's less required now, but we've got all of these different ways of figuring out where you are in addition to who you are. That's a great mechanism of tailoring and customizing that content. Like I mentioned, thinking about location in a way that helps your marketing. It's pretty powerful stuff, and it's really subtle. As long as you're smart with it, it's really subtle. It doesn't feel invasive. It simply feels natural and customized. And if you're doing it well, it completely goes unnoticed. I think that's a key point. That's something that I debate a lot with designers that are around me. If you are doing exceptional design, delivering exceptional design, it's going completely unnoticed. It's not getting in the way. There are a lot of designers out there. I used to be one of them. I try not to be. I learn a new trick. I want to figure out a place to put it, right? We have to not be selfish about the experiences we design, right? The more invisible we can be, the better it is. I guarantee you, when the iPhone came out, and years ago now, and if you were to ask someone, just a layman on the street, what do you think of the UI? What do you think of the design? They probably wouldn't have an answer. It's so intuitive. That's the great thing about the technology now. It's becoming more intuitive, less obtrusive. They probably wouldn't give you feedback. Oh, I really like the icon, or the way, the search, when I click this, it does that, and it's really sexy. It's simply easy to use and intuitive and not in the way. And that's, I think, what we should all be striving for. So visual designers out there, stay out of the way. Yeah.
Okay, last question, Rob. There was another question about millennials and so on. Do you employ personas? Because you mentioned you have a lot of data about your customers, and you could do big data back personas if you wanted.
Yeah, we do. And again, it depends on the maturity of the business. It's very business. Our content is, and some of our products even, are very business focused. So credit card, as an example, we do have different personas that are based on quite a few variety of things. But yeah, it's all persona driven. So yes, the answer is yes. We do. We work well with so I think between our brand team and our content strategy team, they pull together and figure out what those personas are. Again, they come from a lot of research. A lot of that empathy research helps define some of those personas. And then we really get into the details too, especially in terms of accessibility. Our accessibility personas are pretty detailed. So it's really a culmination of all of those. And we're starting to get better with it, I think, personally, as I've seen kind of that practice mature. It's not an accessibility set of personas, a credit card set of personas. It's actually a set of credit card customer personas that consider accessibility, that consider different age brackets, different locations. So we're getting better at it. I think,